Hey guys, it is Chad here from the Battle Warrior Podcast, and I'm just letting all you listeners know that the Battle Warrior Podcast episodes will be available across all podcast platforms, guys. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this brand new episode today.
Hey guys, welcome to Battle Warrior Podcast. I am back with amazing guests, and we are giggling, laughing, and chuckling, and all this fun stuff here. And I'm just gonna say the introduction, and I'm gonna let you roll because, like you said, this is fun. So, welcome Shana Francesca to the podcast here, guys. And she, like I said, and I'm gonna keep repeating, she's a phenomenal guest. But we were already laughing, chuckling, and all this stuff before I'm like, "Yo, time out, plug this. I gotta plug this shit," and we're rolling here. So. This podcast might get a little dirty, and for all you, and I'm a church believer here, guys, but I'm a neutral believer, and I still like a little sexual content at times. So this one might get a little dirty. So, but in general, guys, I'm gonna tell her straight out. Welcome to the podcast. We are unfiltered, so let it fly.
Let it fly. Yeah. Yeah, we were talking before we got on here, and I was like, this conversation is going nowhere good fast, but that's okay. I have
I'm like nowhere good fast for you, and I'm sitting there, I'm like,
here for it. I mean, like I said, I just wrote my first romance novel, and there's like 4 plot lines behind it, so whatever. But in general, so my name is Shana Francesca. I'm an interior designer, a life designer. I'm a speaker and a writer, and I don't just write romance novels. When I talk about writing, I'm talking about designing your life. The reason why that is so critically important for me is because I realized how impactful intention has been in my own life. My background is I grew up in an excessively conservative Christian evangelical cult, and in an abusive household. And my very first memory is of I was 3 years old. I was raped when I was 3 years old by my babysitter's son. Fast forward 12 years, and my father sexually assaulted me when I was 15, after making me take a chastity pledge at 12 and grooming me for the 3 years in between. So at the age of 15, which is where we were leading into this conversation, is when I became sexually active, because I literally just said, fuck you to my dad. Fuck you for making me take a chastity pledge and then trying to take my virginity. How delusional and how disgusting is that? And so I decided to take back the narrative of my own life, and I became sexually active. But yeah, I I think throughout my life, the thing that has remained consistent is that through everything, I just came back to, who is it that I want to be? How do I want to show up in my own life? What is the story I want my life to tell? And the story, I never want the story of my life to be like, she was obedient. She did what I wanted. She lived her life by my rule. No, fuck all that. There's not an ounce of good girl in me. I'm going to do what the fuck I want. And that's the way that I live my life, is I do what the fuck I want. And I don't ask anyone's permission, and I don't ask anyone to try to make sense of it. If you can't make sense of it, that's okay, because I don't live my life for you. And it's not about you trying to be able to connect the dots of who I am and create a tight narrative of what that looks like. Absolutely not. So yeah, and I took my business full time. We were talking about this earlier. I took my business full time 3 years ago, and at the time it was focused mostly on interior design. But at the time I was also conducting group coaching around what I now call life design, and took all the concepts that I used while I work with my clients around getting clear on the story they want their life to tell. What is it that how do they want to feel in their own life, living their own life, leading their own life? And then setting the stage in our own home, right? So one of the 3 three of the main things that are connected to our happiness is, number 1, our mental health. Number 2 is our home. Number two is our home, right? Like let that sink in. So the way that I've I've begun to look at it, and maybe I always looked at it like this, but I recently kind of in the last couple of years kind of formed the language around it, is that we are setting the stage in our home, right? Our home becomes the stage from which we tell the story of our life. And it becomes kind of a vision board for our life. And we can have that space be a direct reflection of who we see ourselves as. Is the last place we close our eyes to every night, the last thing we see when we close our eyes every night, and the first thing we see when we open our eyes in the morning. And it should absolutely be a direct reflection of our beliefs about ourselves. And I think so many people don't feel like they have the right to actually be and embody their full selves inside their own home. So many, so many of my clients are work them. There's so much narrative around what it needs to look like for other people, right? Like it needs to be set up in a specific way for entertaining, for all of these things. But how often are you actually entertaining? How often are other people actually in your home? And I would argue like how it is a direct reflection of how we think in our head, like how no one else is inside your own head, yet we're constantly censoring ourselves and our lives because of other people's thoughts and wants for our life. And I'm the person who people hire to come into their life and be like, fuck the rules, fuck them all.
Create your
We're gonna
own.
do what the hell we want, and we're gonna live our lives. I mean, I intimately know my clients' sex lives, not details, but details, right? Like I need to know how and where and what, right? Because I need to know what the furniture needs to be able to hold up to, right? Like we know all of these things. We're having these deep conversations because sex is a huge part of life. And the way we connect with one another and the way we connect with ourselves, so we're having these beautiful, intimate conversations around every aspect of their lives. And I think the reason why I'm comfortable having those conversations, and B, why they're comfortable having those conversations with me and knowing that they can trust me to have those conversations, is because they can sense that I've been through a lot of shit, and we're having these honest, vulnerable conversations. And I'm not just sitting there like quiet. I'm like really in conversation with them, like asking them questions and diving deeper into, okay, but how, right? Like, for instance, I have one client I worked with, and he's a single guy, and we were getting ready to redo his condo. And I walk into the bedroom and we're like looking around the furniture, and I see screws in the wall, or no, sorry, screws in his headboard and in the back of his headboard. And I was like, hey, why are the screws in the back of your headboard? Aren't they going to like hit the wall when you're having sex? Like, aren't they going to dig into the wall? And he was like, well, we're not going to talk about what they're for. And I was like, oh, BDSM. Never mind. Yes, we need to get you a different headboard because the screws are going to hit the wall. And we need so these are the conversations that we're having. And I'm not in any way scared away by them at all. Right. And the fact that I'm so comfortable with them, like I've literally like picked up and held one of my clients' vibrating anal beads and didn't realize, like I like was digging in a drawer to like move stuff from one drawer to another and didn't know what it was at first. And I was like, oh, as soon as I had it in my hand, I was like, and I shouldn't be holding that. And we're just standing there, and the client's like standing there just laughing hysterically. We're just laughing because shit gets real, and we're human beings, right? Like we're fucking human beings, and we can be in this moment, and we don't have to be disgusted or embarrassed. We just get to embrace our humanity and who we are as human beings, and just like go for broke, because we only have one life that we know of, right? That we are sure we have. That's it. Go for broke. That's what I talk about.
I was gonna say, and I'm gonna tap in my background of this a little bit. So you're talking about what do I look at? I have a little tiny studio. I love the little tiny studio. It fits me perfectly.
Yeah.
For me on the wall, I have couple things. Obviously, yes, my vision boards, my goals boards, all that stuff. That's as a business owner, you have to have that.
You have to. Yeah, I'm staring at mine. They're right behind this ring light.
Yeah, I'm not going to swing the calendar, or the camera, but yeah, they're on my door going out. They're right next to my refrigerator.
Yeah.
On the other stuff, I have 3 canvas prints that I would love to get another big one. It's just not my priority right now, but I'm staring at them right now. One is Bob Marley, up on stage with this hair going back, singing in the mic. The other one is James Hetfield playing guitar, which is, I'm a huge Metallica fan, so that goes on that one. And then literally, if I turn my computer, I have Jimi Hendrix up on the wall. And for me, I look at it this way, and this is where we're gonna, and I'm not gonna make friends how I say this, guys. Yes, I go to church, I volunteer at my church, but I'm not the 100% churchgoer person. I'm the one hybrid where I'm like, okay, I love this, I love volunteering, I love you guys, as you know, but I'm neutral with, you know, if someone walks in purple hair and whatever, I'll be like, yo, man, what's up? What's your story? How's it going? You know, and it's not, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, you got to be by the book. I don't give a shit. Like, come here, give me a hug. That's just how open I am and warm I am to people. But to me, I look at it this way: is I knew when I overcame my addictions, what it was I was spiraling out of control with my addictions because I didn't know I was the outlier. And like we were talking about the entertainers, where you have these expectations and you just spiral, and I'm just like, fuck this. And what I do now is I leaned into Metallica because Metallica, like certain slow Metallica songs kept me alive, like literally, like the bluesy, slow, like load, reload stuff in '90s.
Yeah.
Hendrix goes back a little bit because I'm a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, which comes from Hendrix.
Yeah.
It's just that, but for me, Voodoo Child. And Voodoo Child's a little bit different though, because when I'm 37, so when I hear Voodoo Child, I hear go back to the freeness of '90s wrestling, which would be like Hulk Hogan walking through with black on.
Oh my god!
to Voodoo Child.
That's like, yeah, really, that's like childhood. I'm 38, so like we grew up at the same time.
Yeah, so like, to me, it's not, I'm not connecting the dots of that. I'm connecting the dots of the freeness. So like at that time, the guys like Nash Hall, the NWO, whatever it was, even the WWF stuff, they were free, they were loose, there was no filters, they could be that character. And I look at Marley, he never cared. He knew who he was. He was the outlier. He did whatever. And obviously, Metallica, everyone knows Metallica.
Well, and I get all that. I'm neurodivergent. I have autism spectrum disorder and ADHD. So my life is deeply connected to music, and I use music and other things and sensory like clues in my life to help shape and shift my own mood to get me to do things and overcome my executive dysfunction. So I'll put on certain music when I'm working, and I put on certain things when I'm like just need to like shake it out and move around. So like I've been deeply connected to music my entire life, and I think most people are deeply connected to music. Like a certain song will come on and it'll trigger people into certain, like remembering certain memories and all those things. And I love when people surround themselves with, you know, their favorite musicians. There was a woman who came to me and she said, when I gave a talk about life design, and she came up and she's like, yeah, I really need to like renovate. She's going through a divorce right now. And she said, yeah, I have a bunch of like posters on my wall and I need to like, I probably need to take them down. And I was like, wait, hold on. Can we talk about the posters? What are they? She's like, they're of concerts I've been to. Okay, great. So are they your like favorite musicians? Yes. She's like, yes, they are. I love them. I loved going to those concerts. It reminds me of those concerts. Okay, great. Did you have them up on the wall when you were married? She's like, no, definitely not. And I was like, oh, so those posters remind you of your wild, of who you are, that you obviously didn't feel you could be in your marriage for whatever reason. And she's like, yeah. I was like, great, they belong on your wall. maybe the thing that needs to change is how they're on your wall. Maybe they need to be framed. Or maybe you need to be more, maybe you want to be more intentional about the way they're laid out on your wall. But they absolutely belong on your wall because they're a representation of who you are and you feel deeply connected to them. So I'm not the interior designer who's coming in, and I don't have a specific style that I impose. I don't. I refuse to have one. The style that I developed, and when people look at my work, every single project is completely different. Why? Because every single client is completely different. And the style I craft and the way that I design their home is completely unique to who they are. And it is an amalgamation of everything I see them as. So it's who they are through the filter of me, but it's absolutely how I see them, not anything else. And it has nothing to do with me, except it's how I view them.
It's a hybrid.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is where my idea came into my mind. This was held back a couple of years ago, but to me, if I ever buy a nice house or older house, whatever it is, I had this idea of like walking. You know how in the bigger cities you have like these 100-year-old buildings where you walk in the cellar and it's like brick sidewalls, like brick walls. But to me, it was like the old classic lights of like going to the original Pizza Huts, where it was that real dimmed down look. And
I love
I'm
that
gonna,
you said the original Pizza Hut, because immediately as soon as you said that, I'm like, there was like brick archways,
yeah, and
like the booths were inside of there. Yeah.
yeah, and it was red and gnarly and just
Yes.
it was a
Hideous.
calmness feel, and it smelled awesome though. So we'll just leave it at that. But
Yeah.
in general, so I'm from Wisconsin, so like we have the Rave in Milwaukee, which is like a 120-year-old building. But like those concert halls where you walk into the old school building where it's just brick everything. So for me, it was if I'm going to enter my basement or like a creative zone, and you're seeing a lot of this now where guys are blacking everything out. So walk in where it's like just this whole complete like you're walking in a 100-year-old basement, and then have like the band shit in the back, like the guitars or whatever it is. But there's a thing where it's like I would open the door and I would have like a complete box of say, okay, hey, this is Jimi Hendrix Stratocaster up on the wall with Hendrix playing.
Yeah.
Where I could go up and grab it and drop it, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know how creative, even though it's dark and gnarly and just nasty, but like, you know how creative that would be? Because to me, that would be bringing that freedom of going to like a real small, condensed concert area.
Yeah.
And just get like that soulful feeling.
Yeah. Almost like a jazz club.
Yeah.
Or or even like a small comedy club.
Yeah. Well, exactly what it is, like a complete like basement of like a small comedy club. And I'm not really a huge jazz fan, but we'll just leave it at that. I'm gonna keep that quiet.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Not a huge jazz fan. It depends on what kind of jazz you're talking about. Like I love Coltrane, and I love Sarah Vaughan, and I love all these like singers and artists, but I'm not a smooth jazz fan. Put on smooth jazz and I'm gonna like rip my hair out, right? It just there's different types of jazz, and there's different types of ways that musicians handle it and see it.
So I'm gonna say it this way, because I saw one last year. She opened up for Kenny Wayne Shepherd up here. She was a Chicago soulful jazz, but she played jazz, like the band was jazz, but it was more like a dance jazz. But it wasn't like the crazy, like you were talking about.
Not like Coltrane.
No, it was such a grit, gnarly, almost that southern like blues, like classic. I don't say black blues, but just that classic blues, where she wasn't from the South, but she had the grit, she had the gnarl, and she could just hold notes, and you could tell like when she started, like that whole stage shook. I'm like, as a showmanship, looking at that, I'm like, okay, this is awesome, because she could command a crowd within 2-3 seconds. I think she let like 2 notes out, and everyone's like, okay, we got your attention. Stuff like that, I love. Like the club, I call it club noise, but like they play live, like a live jazz, where they're feeling off the people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's the thing with every aspect of life, is just feeling into a moment, feeling off of each other, connecting with one another. I mean, it's how I work, it's how I work as a life designer, as an interior designer, whether it's group coaching, talking about life design, or it's with my clients in their homes as an interior designer, because to me, life design is the umbrella and interior design sits under it, right? So I have clients that I work with in group coaching, and then they might hire me as an interior designer, whereas I started out my career as an interior designer, and now it just kind of is this thing that I also do. But it's always, to me, about the connection. When we connect with human beings, and we connect with people, right? Whether you're performing, whether you're speaking, whether you're on a podcast, when you're connecting with people, there's a specific synergy and there's a specific energy that's created that is unique to that moment and unique to that relationship. And I love that aspect of life. And I think too often we're so worried about what someone thinks rather than just being inside of our body and being inside of ourselves. And I think that's when we start to slip away and lose ourselves, is when we're worried about gaining someone's approval rather than knowing we need ours first. Right. And so like that's the thing that I do with my clients is I'm like, you don't need my permission or anybody else's. I want to empower you to know that you are you and you are fucking amazing. And I just want to show you how I see you. And then, and I love because most of my clients are older than me, right? They're 45 and older. And it's been that way since I started. So I was like in my 20s working with people in their 40s, and I'm like, just be you. God damn it. Just be you. Right. And I'm like yelling at people who are like old enough to be my parents. But I love when then like a year later, 2 years later, I get a text message from them. And they're like, hey, you know that guy I was dating when we first started working together? He's moving in now. Right. Like, like I get these, beautiful interactions with my clients, like as they move through life, and how changing their home environment changed their mental health, changed their connection to themselves and the world around them, and then changed their life. Right. It's like the more we give ourselves permission to be ourselves, the more we give permission to other people around us to do the same, and the more we create community around ourselves that's beautiful and authentic, and we can have these incredible conversations and incredible connection. And it's just, I mean, that's how you design your life, right? Like just continuing to build connection to the world around you, people around you, and just being able to be your authentic self.
Well, and this goes back to, and I was talking about Saturday, and guys don't understand that are listening. I was at an event Saturday, and after it, even though I'm clean, I was still at the bar area in Vegas listening to the live band, and the singer come walking by, and she was looking at everyone at the table, and I'm just chilling.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not like a chill. I'm pretty wound up like you, but when it's time to relax, I'm done.
I was gonna say,
like,
are you neurodivergent? Like, I'm like, do you have ADHD?
I have a whole lot of it right now. The thing about it is you caught me after an hour and a half workout, so I'm a little bit more
wired.
Yes. And I look at this and going, she come walking up, very beautiful, but just in general, I'm like, yeah, like I'll talk to her when I need to. And all of a sudden she turns and she's like, hey, don't you have to jump in this conversation? Like, no. She's like, why? I'm like, I don't need, like, I could watch you guys interact.
Yeah.
But the thing I learned about it, I'm getting to a point here, guys, is the guy that was sitting literally across me was a subconscious teacher. So he taught subconscious mind and feel free and getting, not the law of attraction, but just in general, like getting everything around you relaxed to where people come to you and enjoy it. And like you said, you just become yourself and breaking free and all that fun stuff. But he said straight out, he goes, you didn't see this because you were looking at all of us having a conversation. He goes, she read people's energies. So it's like she come walking up, she looked at me. Nope, I can't mess with them. Go to the next one. Nope, not that one. Okay, she's cool. I want to talk to her, focus. And then he goes, the cool thing about it is she turned to you because you're just sitting there chill.
Yeah.
And not caring, but not an arrogant way, but just enjoying it. And he goes, she just completely did a 180, looked at you, say, why aren't you talking? Because he goes, and the more we learned is she was a very not say hyperactive, but like me up to 100, like very impulsive, all that stuff, just boom, 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 like rapid fire. And he goes, you messed that pattern up. He goes, because when you turned around, you're not sitting there at her pace. And she was concerned and not concerned, but like eager to see, why aren't you up to my pace? And I'm sitting there and she walked away, whatever. And he looked at me, he goes, you went through a lot of trauma, didn't you? I said, yeah. He goes, and you're finally becoming yourself, aren't you? I said, yeah. I'm finding a good zone I'm in right now.
Yeah.
So there's always room for growth and development, all that stuff. Yeah. And he goes, and then he points, he's like, you know who you are.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, why? He's like, because she didn't mess with you. I'm like,
yeah.
What?
It's so good that someone else noticed it too, though. Like you stayed embodied.
Yeah.
You stayed inside your own body. You didn't leave that. You didn't try to become anything else. Yeah.
He goes, you literally stayed in your zone, your space, your whatever it is. And you're like, okay, this is me. Come on in. And he's like, that was so cool to watch. Cause he's like, I didn't, and he's like, yeah, you're young, but he's like, I knew you went through something already, because, in the same thing with you, like, we become so alert with the feeling around us, even though we're physically focused and want goals, and we're tunnel visioned and ADHD, we're fucking like insanely obsessed with certain things.
And with everything.
And I'm going to add it in, we almost carry a superpower because of the feel. So like, even though we know what to do, whatever it is, but we also have this little, and I joke around, but like a radar on our head saying, okay, this person is a bad energy. Like,
I don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. You have to become sensitive as an entrepreneur and somebody who's been through a lot of trauma. You have to have a good bullshit radar, and you have to learn to trust it. You have to learn to trust your intuition. Your intuition is there to tell you. And I tell this to people all the time, your body will tell you things before your mind does. Your subconscious is running in the background, and your body will tell you exactly how you feel before you even consciously know, right? You'll lean back from someone, or you'll move your cup away from them, or you'll cross your arms, or there's different ways that we will respond to someone physically before we'll recognize mentally, maybe moments before, maybe minutes before, maybe hours before we consciously recognize, like, actually, I was right about that person. Usually, I've learned to trust my body, and I've learned to listen to my intuition, and just be like, you know what, that person's full of crap. And it's not a judgment against them, right? Because I understand the world we live in is built on systems of oppression. And I understand that people are just trying to survive, and they've developed coping mechanisms, and they've developed strategies and ways, and they've aligned themselves with narratives so that they can survive in this world. I don't believe that people are good or bad. I believe we're all a sliding scale between the two. So it's not a judgment. It's just like, whatever they're dealing with, I'm not going to take that on. I'm not even going to have a conversation with them. I don't want to. And I just walk away, right? I don't even make any excuses anymore. I don't make excuses. I just walk away. I don't even sometimes people are like talking to me, and they're just like so full of shit. And I'm like, I'm not even going to excuse myself. I just turn and walk away now. And they might think I'm an asshole, but I'm like, what the hell you were talking about had nothing to do with me, and it was stealing my energy. And I just decided that I wasn't going to deal with it anymore. And you clearly knew I felt that way. So you were trying to monopolize the conversation, so I didn't have an out. And I don't need an out. I'm just going to walk away. Bye. Right? That's just where I'm at. And I think you develop that boldness, especially when you're an entrepreneur, because when you work in the corporate world, you are constantly needing other people's approval. And when you first start out in business, I think you still operate in the same way, but then you kind of get to the place where you're like, fuck, this is a lot of struggle. Yeah. And if I'm going to struggle and be in this much pain, there's got to be a balance somewhere. And the balance is that I've got to take care of myself first.
And I'm going to add this line in there, because this line popped up in my head last year when I started going crazier into this journey. My mind said, you know what? I'm either going to go bankrupt or I'm going to make it.
100%. I might go bankrupt and then make it.
Yeah. And then my mind says, if I'm going to do it, just fucking do it my own way.
100%. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. There's been so many times when I've been on the hair's edge of bankrupt. And if you don't, even companies like Nike, when you read, Phil Knight's book, and they are on the knife edge of bankruptcy so many times, right? Just somehow they got through somehow, right? With crazy amounts of debt, with whatever, people just you figure it out. That's the thing that you figure out in entrepreneurship, is you learn to shift, you learn to adjust, you learn to adapt. And I think it's made me better at what I do, because it helps me to teach people how to do the same, right? People who have jobs, it's helped me to be able to teach them, how do you learn to adapt? How do you get comfortable with change? How do you get comfortable with being constantly uncomfortable? Because there's nothing comfortable about life, literally nothing. Nothing. And we're meant to feel all the things. We're meant to feel all the things. and creating space for ourselves where we can feel all the things, where we surround ourselves with people who love us. Like people in, I've become in the last 3 years also who was allowed in my house. Like this is dead serious. You are not allowed in my house. You are not allowed to bring your energy into my home unless I am 100% sure that your energy belongs in my home. Like if I, because you're leaving a part of yourself behind. Your energy, like it, literally physics tells us everything is made of energy. A part of whoever that person is, the part of the conversations we have, a part of everything they are is left behind with them. And I've got to deal with that energy, and I don't want it in my home.
Well, and that's going to break it down to anxiety. I want to say my feeling now, even though I'm capped off on certain things with meds, but if I have a huge anxiety rush of it's not going to go well,
right?
I just completely walk away from that person, like
Yeah.
girl, friend, whatever it is. Like
yeah.
I would say something, and all of a sudden I jump. Then I'm like, okay, that's not the one. No,
yeah.
Like keep moving. Or in general, like that's not the dude you need to be around. Like,
yeah, I'm 100% looking to date someone who I have no crazy reaction to. I'm really like, and I know my nervous system is going to have a heart attack, right? Because growing up the way that I did, and beyond being raped at 3, being sexually assaulted, I'm neurodivergent. So what ends up happening is that I'm so curious about the world, and I talk to people, and I love people, and I'm interested in people so much that that oftentimes men take it that I'm interested in them, and I'm not. I'm just being a human being, and I'm just actually genuinely care about who they are. Yeah. And because they've never had interaction from a woman that way, who wasn't interested in sleeping with them, they take it as sexual when it's not. So I have in fact been kidnapped. I've been stalked. I was kidnapped on a first date at 27. You know, I've had a lot of really difficult situations. So it's taken me a really long time to get to the place where, you know, I'm very like
closed until you know when you're ready.
Yeah. But now I've gotten to the place where I just say all the things out loud. Right. Like, so if I can tell that someone's getting there, like I pay attention to my body, I pay attention to them, and I'll just walk away. Right. Like before I used to be so polite about it. Now when I feel that they're like starting to latch on to me, I'm like, no, that's not what this is. I put it to people this way. If I'm talking to a man and he's making it like it's something, I'm like, I'll turn to him and say, would you be acting this way if I was a man? If we were having this same conversation and I was a man, would you be thinking of it as sexual? You wouldn't. I'm just treating you like a human being, and I need you to treat me the same. So please don't sexualize it. Like, and then, you know, if I feel safe to say that, otherwise I'm just hightailing it out of there. You know, like I've been through so much pain and so much difficulty that now I just give myself permission to just leave. No explanation, no nothing, you know. And I don't invite people into my space. I just don't. Unless I know I could trust you with my life, you're not allowed in my house.
Yeah, and that's me and you're almost at that same stage.
Yeah.
Where it's like your home is your home where you can be creative zone and just
it's very protected.
Yeah. And certain routines now for me are very protected because I know like for your sake too, like whatever it is to keep yourself the healthiest,
yes,
you protect and you hold and you do whatever you need to do. Like for me, yes, working out. I can't meditate for shit because I can't sit still, but I need to learn how to do it.
Yeah, but meditation, can I just like push back on that for a second?
Go ahead.
Meditation doesn't have to be seated, number one. Meditation can be walking. Meditation can be a lot of things. Your mind is going to wander. No one's doesn't. Mine wanders every 3 seconds. And I'm like Dory. Like, what was I doing? Oh, right. I'm supposed to be meditating, right? Like, it's a practice. And the last couple of weeks, I have to admit, I've gotten away from it because I was meditating outside every day and the weather got colder. And now I'm like, shit. And now I have to meditate inside and I hate it. And it's dark in the morning when I wake up and I want the sun to be shining. So I'm going through a little like rebellious mode, but I've got to get back to it. I have been meditating every single day for 2 years. But meditation is not just one thing, and no one gets to define what it is for you. All it is being mindful, being quiet with yourself, right? And it could be that you need to listen to a sound meditation, or you need quiet, or you need to be walking, or you need to be fidgeting with something in your hand. Every one of us is singular, is not, none of us are this, we're none of us are the same. We all have specific needs and we all need to be able to attend to them. And I think as you sit in your practice, how you meditate changes. But
And
just start wherever you are.
yeah, and the thing that I was going to say is I'm going to add in a male side of it, because the older I get as a male, you start seeing older guys smoke cigars.
Mm.
And it's some of it's image, but
Yeah.
the way I look at it now for me is I look at it, and it's going to, insurance companies, guys, just don't even listen to this, but to me, sitting by the river chilling,
Yeah.
relaxation, resetting, that's when that comes in.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just like, I'm like, okay, I'm on a porch looking
Yeah.
at nature, whatever it is. Like, and I think that's kind of like my hybrid form of meditation.
Yeah, it is. That is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it. But yeah, no, it's I was gonna say, since we're running out of topics, I know we can go forever.
We could. I don't know that we're running out of topics. I think we're more running out of time.
Guys, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have her back, because obviously we both ran podcasts and we're
Yeah.
both guests and we can go forever. But
Yeah.
where can my guests find all the amazing things that you can
Yeah.
brag about?
Yeah. So the best way to connect with me, you could email me. It's Shana, Shana at Concinnate.world. You can email me. Or if you want to just find all of my contact information, me as a speaker, me workshops, upcoming group coaching, all of that is available on my website. It's Concinnate, www.concinnate.world. I'm sure it'll be tagged in the show notes. Everything's there. You can reach out to me that way. I have new set of group coaching kicking off. They'll be on Mondays and Wednesdays starting January 30th, focused on life design, talking about intention, intuition, curiosity, and how those things shape and mold how we show up for ourselves and others, and how it and feeds into joy in our life.
Thank you.
That's it.
Welcome to the, I would say welcome to the show. We're gonna end it up. Okay. Thank you for coming to the show. That's just how it rolls, guys. No problem.